All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to actually our first in-person event at a place that thrives on in-person events in 15 months. And it's just perfect and appropriate and great that this would be the Bennett Prize. We were a little worried, and that's an understatement, of whether we could do anything. And I'm just so happy you're here and we can actually do something. Getting right to it, what do you think of the room? Fantastic. It's great. It's fantastic. It just looks wonderful in here. I don't think it can do it justice online. And Annika's show is just equally as fantastic in the next gallery. So I just want to thank a couple of people quickly. Our underwriters of this, Raymond James of downtown Muskegon. They've been with us underwriting this since the inception of the Bennett Prize, and I love them because they get the mission of this, and they're very passionate about this whole prize and what we do, so thank them very much. I do wish we could have had a bigger celebration, of course. It's been a kind of a tough year, we know that. It's almost been cliche to say, oh, it's been this and that, because we've all had a rough time. But one thing I really liked about the Bennett Prize is we've all been remote since 2017, working through. It felt, you went on a Zoom meeting with other entities, and you realized this was not usual, but you jump on a Zoom or emails with the Bennett Prize team from Pittsburgh. It felt normal. It was kind of comforting, actually, through this to work on the Bennett Prize, knowing we're going to get here. So, Bennett Prize was ahead of its time again in social distancing and working remotely. So that's fantastic. So, and if things allow, at the end of summer, this exhibition's fully booked almost. I think there's one slot left to travel the country. So I think we're going to all try to gather back here, get the MMA membership, our donor base, get the public in here, and do a bash with hundreds of people as we usually do, and send this off on a bon voyage for a couple years journey. So I hope you can return for that. And yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't make this any less meaningful or impactful. I mean, I'm so glad we're here, and I'm so glad, it's so wonderful to work with Stephen and Elaine on this and help them fulfill, their vision on this. As I said at some earlier comments today, it's a crazy idea that found a crazy staff, and it's something the staff jumps in to do. I mean, this is kind of really up our alley. We love doing this kind of stuff. So, and I want to mention the Pittsburgh Foundation on the television here, another wonderful partner. I mean, we work well together so much. And Rogo, we have one Rogo rep here running the tech. And what's really strange about Rogo is, like, we've been working with them a long time now. It's been like a long relationship. With our Big Curtis exhibitions back in 16, 17. So that's been terrific. So the MMA staff, I want to especially acknowledge Art Martin here, who really does the nuts and bolts of this whole exhibition. And I especially want to thank, too, the people who had really the most difficult task, the jurors here. We had, 750... 763. That's a lot of art to go through, and a lot of it is so good. So I want to thank artist Lissa Monks. She's around here somewhere. She's not here. I thought I saw her. Patrick Moore, director of the Warhol Museum. He's back in the corner there. And artist Katie O'Hagan. I know she's here. So thanks for tuning in, which is a strange thing to say. Thanks for coming. And I'd like to introduce the president and CEO of the Pittsburgh Foundation, our terrific partner, Lisa Schroeder, on the television via Zoom. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Kirk. I am so happy to be with you all today, albeit virtually, on behalf of the Pittsburgh Foundation and our Center for Philanthropy, which helps Stephen and Elaine actualize their vision for an art prize that would supercharge the profile and careers of women figurative realist painters. The Bennetts came to us 5 years ago through their financial advisor, Eric Gordon, who was familiar with our center. And we've been working side by side with the Bennetts ever since to create what is still the largest art prize exclusively for women who paint in the figurative realist genre. We're here at Muskegon Museum of Art, which has been a tremendous partner to us and the Bennetts, who are the most esteemed and respected collectors of figurative realist painters in this country, if not the world. And we're so excited to hear the news shortly about this year's prize winner. Now in its second round, the Bennett Prize is needed more than ever. Countless news stories have enumerated the disproportionate burdens that the coronavirus has placed upon women. Women have dropped out of the workforce in record numbers. They've lost access to childcare and school. Many are now doubling as teachers for young children and caring for aging relatives. Just contemplating all that women are shouldering is exhausting, and yet the Bennett Prize artists continue to paint. The Bennett Prize in tonight's opening event provides a moment to reflect upon and celebrate the resilience and creativity of these gifted women. The 10 finalists have somehow, in spite of all that has been disrupted, made extraordinary works of art. They've continued to imagine women and the worlds we inhabit in ways that are instantly recognizable, but also tantalizing and subversive. They are starting new conversations about societal conventions, aesthetics, sexuality, body image, and age. These women have ideas, and they are breathtaking in diversity and the breadth of their talent and their excellence. The Bennett Prize stands as a vivid illustration of what generous philanthropists with an inspired idea can do by working in partnership with community philanthropy. It is our honor to serve as steward to the Bennett Fund, the Bennett Prize, and to Stephen and Elaine's vision of a world where gender is no longer a barrier to overcome, but a compelling force to be celebrated, venerated, and rewarded. Please join me in welcoming Bennett Prize founders Steve Bennett and Dr. Elaine Milady Schmidt.
Good evening, everybody. Lisa, thank you for your kind comments. I kind of feel like I shouldn't say anything now because you were so articulate and brilliant. And you'll see I'm kind of singing the same song with perhaps a different beat. But we'd like to thank all the artists for coming. When I walked in today, I got goosebumps. Hard for me not to cry, can be a little emotional about this, but your work is outstanding. And we want to thank the partners and the spouses and the mothers and the friends who came to support all of the artists. I think every human being does better in life when they know there's somebody that stands behind them and beside them and sometimes maybe even pushes them along. So, as everybody has probably heard by now, the Bennett Prize's stated purposes are to further figurative realism and to propel the career of women artists in order to counter decades of overt gender discrimination. Now, I'm going to tell you something that I'm sure most of you don't know, who we can blame for this gender discrimination. And that would be our friend Aristotle. He declared that creativity was innately male and that women possessing deformed or inferior bodies to women simply weren't capable of making art. This assumption was held for a long time as different cultures adopted his view that women were weaker or at best different. So during different periods of history, women were viewed as not strong enough to hold a paintbrush, which I find interesting as I'm sure they could hoist a pot or carry a baby around. They were not allowed to attend formal art schools, which were reserved exclusively for men. They weren't able to paint live nudes or even sign their own work in the Baroque period. And the struggle continues, given the fact that women have not gained parity in spite of having made some gains. The National Museum of Women in the Arts have compiled statistics relating to this topic, And the following are just a few pointed examples. 11% of the acquisitions made by the 26 prominent museums that were surveyed were by women, and only 14% of the exhibitions. Now, I have to say, I think this inequality is becoming openly acknowledged, but it will take years to rectify the difference and for the permanent collections in the museums to change just due to financial constraints. 13.7% of living artists represented by galleries in the US and Europe are women. And when you think of the fact that more than 51% of the art students are women and only 13% end up in galleries, that's still, we have a ways to go. The National Endowment of the Arts has found that women artists earn less than men. Surprise? 75 cents on every dollar, and it even gets worse as they grow older, 66 cents. So instead of, as your career progresses, you earn more money, not necessarily. So it's kind of ageism and sexism. So this, artists, is where you come in. As we look back on the past 4 or 5 years since the prize was conceived, there is clearly a new zeitgeist embodied in cultural shifts and evolving public attitudes in America. Also, figurative realism is on the rise, and we've seen it at Art Basel in different museums. And so this generation of women artists, you need to seize the moment and paint like mad. Paint, paint. Make your voices heard. Your art as it relates to you as an individual and a culture, national, societal culture, social identity culture, religious culture, will tell the story of this time, and that is so important. Additionally, it is our deepest hope, Steve's and mine, that all of this ultimately will contribute to greater inclusion, respect, and equity in our society. Frances Morris, who happens to be a woman, the first woman director of the Tate, recently said, "My advice to women in the arts today is that this is a changed world, but it is still a case of pushing and making opportunities and never, ever being complacent." Now, my complimentary advice to you is make your voice worth hearing while simultaneously amplifying the voice of others. This combination will be loud, and it will command the attention of the listeners, as in this powerful exhibition, Rising Voices 2. And speaking of voices, I want to introduce you to a person who has a forceful voice and massive intellect that you're going to hear tonight. Now, I have to say, we never compare our comments. That way we can each say our own thing without the other person trying to change when you get to know us. The other person saying, "Do you really want to say that?" Or maybe you should say it this way. So we intentionally don't compare notes. Yes. But his voice projects well, he has clear enunciation, good tone, and communicates thought-provoking content, literally and figuratively. He's a great man. It is my pleasure to introduce the driving force behind the prize and my best friend, Stephen Bennett.
You can tell she's the brains behind the outfit, can't you? Where do I begin with an introduction like that? Dr. Schmidt is a woman of intelligence, vivacity, perspicacity, I love that word, and vision. And let me tell each and every one of you, especially the artists, that without her driving force, the Bennett Prize would still be an idea looking for a reality. As Dr. Schmidt and I have said for years, women artists face a double whammy. Women realist painters in particular, and that is that they're impaired by both gender discrimination and genre discrimination. And so it was with that nucleus of motivation to deal with those discriminations that 5 years ago we decided to do something about it, and the result was and is the Bennett Prize, which, as you all know, is an art competition that celebrates women figurative realist painters and makes no apologies about it. This marks the second biennial edition of the prize, and as before, we don't apologize for openly supporting women or for openly supporting figurative realism. Indeed, as recent events testify, and auction results and museum shows continue to prove, we were not wrong in our support of women and figurative realism, and we're only glad that big art has decided to get on this bandwagon with us. Just this past month, Sotheby's London held its first online women's artist sale. Actually, it closed this morning. The Modern Art Museum of Fort Worth, Texas, opened its first Women Painting Women show this month. Isn't that a clever and creative idea? The Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago has opened an extraordinary exhibition of the work of Christina Quarles, one of the most unique women figurative painters working today. These are not accidents. They're not accidents. They're a result of a lot of hard work designed to increase the consciousness of and enlarge appreciation for the work of contemporary women figurativists. The Bennett Prize is certainly one of these efforts, and we hope catalyzing one. Now, you've heard a lot of thanks, but I get to repeat some of them for the sake of the people that do all this work. Every successful undertaking is the result of the combined efforts of a dedicated and interrelated team, and the Bennett Prize is certainly no different. It has wonderful and dedicated support from a variety of sponsors. First, from a dedicated team at the Pittsburgh Foundation, Lisa Schroeder, the president, Kelly Uranker, the head of the TPF Center for Philanthropy, Emmy Callan, the director of strategic projects, and Kitty Julian, the director of communications. Notice, those are women. These women have proven their commitment through their unflagging dedication and commitment to the work necessary to make this evening and all that precedes it a reality. Likewise, here in Muskegon, the Muskegon Museum of Art has squarely backed this project from the beginning, first with the interest shown by the then director Judy Hayner 4 years ago, and thereafter with the absolute and continuing dedication and effort of the entire staff here. Director Kirk Hallman, Art Martin, our wonderful director of collections and exhibitions, Kathy Mott, the assistant director, and Marguerite Curran, the director of marketing. These folks have been front and center week in and week out in the years since the Bennett Prize made Muskegon its home, and we are making sure that they remain with us and they continue to help you, our audience, so that you can see what figurative realist women painters are capable of. We would be remiss if we did not mention the boards of the Pittsburgh Foundation and the MMA, both of which have lent their considerable support to the success of this project. As it is at the top, so it is below. Finally, we take a moment to recognize Rogo, whom Kirk has mentioned, our communications partners, Amanda Rogalski, Catherine Gagliotti, and Maylee Waringa. Maylee is here tonight. Make sure you reach your hand out and say hello. These people have worked tirelessly with Marguerite Curran at the MMA and Kitty Julian in Pittsburgh to make sure that the prize is top of mind both in traditional media and online. We also take a moment to recognize the fabulous team at Raymond James, who have continued to be our most wonderful sponsors here in Muskegon. Thank you to them for being here from the beginning. We also thank the outside jurors, Alyssa Monks, a consummate and exemplary figurative painter, teacher, and mentor, who regrettably could not be with us here tonight. Katie O'Hagan, also a remarkable figurist of extraordinary talent and ability. There she is back there. Katie, thank you. And Patrick Moore, the director of the Andy Warhol Museum, who brought his immense sensibilities as a museum director to bear in what was a very difficult, I repeat, difficult decisioning process. Finally, as we have in the past and will continue to do, we honor and salute the entrants, all 700 plus of these bold and creative women who put themselves out there by submitting their work and allowing themselves to be judged and evaluated as part of the process of awarding this prize. We also recognize our 2019 winner, Annika Ingold, who has used the proceeds of the first Bennett Prize to enable her to mount her very own solo show, Transfiguration, which is an extraordinary display of talent and sensibility, which tonight has opened concurrently with the exhibition of the work of this year's finalists. And I would point out that most of the work on the walls of both the finalists exhibition, this room, and Annika's winners exhibition in the adjoining room is for sale. So this is an extraordinary opportunity to collect the work of these wonderful women. Don't leave the museum without one. And now we reach the finalists. Once again, from all over America, these women display the breadth and depth of what contemporary figurative realist painters are capable of, and they touch us deeply with the immensity and extent of their vision and talent. And as before, the work of these artists has sparked debates among the jurors on all the questions that make art the human necessity that it is. What does it mean to be human? How do figures and souls interrelate? What is the balance between narrative and visual depiction? What are the bounds of creativity? And as you can see from their work on all of these walls, the output of these women is as different as it can be, but each artist demonstrates an extraordinary, ladies, an extraordinary level of deftness and competence, although the expressions of each of you, one from the next, differ significantly. So before naming the winner, we're going to take this opportunity to recognize our finalists one more time. Sophia Yamizi Adeyemo Ross from Providence, Rhode Island. Tanmaya Bingham from Portland, Oregon. Chloe Chason from Brooklyn, New York. June Glasson from Millburg, New York. Holly Keogh from Charlotte, North Carolina. Lavely Miller from Baltimore, Maryland. Rebecca Orcutt from North Bend, Washington. Ayana Ross, did I get it, Ayana? All right, I feel better. From McDonough, Georgia. And Susu from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There's Susu. And finally, last but not least, Amy Wernz from Dallas, Texas. Please, ladies, why don't you give yourselves a round of applause? So now, ladies, it's time for us to name the winner. You will receive $50,000 over a 2-year period with the expectation that you will mount a solo show that will open here in Muskegon in 2023 and then travel the country with the work of the 2023 finalists. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the 2021 Bennett Prize for Women Figurative Realist Painters is Ayana Ross of McDonough, Georgia.
I have words written, that's helpful. I have to say I've never won anything. I've never had my work really acknowledged to this extent. So it means so much, especially considering that I'm from Georgia. I grew up in South and Central Georgia, and I just did not even know that being an artist was a thing. I went to my first museum when I was in high school, and as much as my family loves and supports me, we just didn't know. And so to not have that level of exposure and to hold on to a dream of something that you have no tangible reference for, it's really incredible to be recognized among so many wonderful, wonderful people. So for that, I just want to say thank you. I did write words. It has been such an honor to be considered and to exhibit work with you 10 fabulous women, and I look forward to being able to talk with you all. This journey has been incredible. From November 14th, when I received the phone call and I heard that familiar voice on my voicemail, and I went running upstairs to my husband. I'm like, Stephen Bennett just called me, and I still have it. And from that moment, I knew that just possibilities just opened up. Possibilities opened up, and I'm just so grateful for the community that rallied around me, my children, my husband, my family, my mother, my aunt, my uncle, my students. Oh, my students. I hope they're watching too. Words cannot express, but I want to say thank you, Dr. Schmidt and Stephen Bennett. Thank you so much for making this opportunity available. Thank you for seeing a need. Thank you for putting the action behind the need, because it is very real. It is very real. And to the jurors, thank you. Again, Steve Bennett, Katie O'Hagan, Alyssa Minks, and Patrick Moore, thank you for seeing something noteworthy in my work and in my my practice. Just words cannot express. I'm just so overwhelmed and thankful, and I probably am going to have to take a few minutes to let this resonate. I know my family's watching because I can feel my phone vibrating under the stand. It's like nonstop. So for everyone at home, Savage, Sojourner, Skylar, Solomon, I love you. Just thank you all. I'm just,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We have a little something for you. So as we always do, we award the Bennett Prize trophy to the winner. And I'm going to suggest you hold it by the base. Okay. It weighs 35 pounds.
It's amazing. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much.